I've been buying EF lenses for something like 7 years now, and with this new Canon C70, I'm curious what lenses here pair nicely with this camera, what lenses should I probably get rid of, and what gaps might there be in this collection. If you're new here, hi, I'm Eric. I'm a freelance video creator based in Boston, Mass. I shoot, edit, animate, composite, etc. So let's start with the widest. Tokina 11 to 16. Really surprised at how often I use it. There's so many times where I just need to get really wide for one shot. It has autofocus. It's really loud autofocus, but it does work. Its downsides, it's not sharp. I think I actually used this guy on the last YouTube video I made for like the behind the scenes wide shot. Glad I have it. Do recommend it. Next we'll go to 18 to 35, which is what I'm filming on. I've never seen the internet love a single camera lens more.
This thing is the best lens ever made for a crop sensor camera.
The price to quality ratio is just irresistible. I think the main flaw with this is that it doesn't have IS. This C70 does have that small micro jitter eliminating internal digital stabilization. So I think that this lens gets by without it. I have a 24mm Pancake, which is right up here. It's on my C100 on a C-stand, getting these overhead shots. I like this lens because I can be discreet with it. If I'm filming somewhere I probably shouldn't be filming, this is the lens I'm probably gonna use. Like the big downside of this lens for video is that the throw is microscopic because it's a photo lens and it's just really tough to even get focus, never mind try to rack focus. But the autofocus is solid enough with the C70 where I would actually feel pretty confident using it. This is reliable. The nifty 50. This guy has a special place in my heart. I bought this lens to use with my T3i, my first ever DSLR. Love this guy, sorry about that. With this lens I realized, wow, I can film my friends' bands and I can add serious depth of field and rack from one musician to the other. It has a 1.8 aperture, which is still among the fastest of any of my lenses. Combination of super loud autofocus with super unreliable autofocus makes it not something I would ever trust on a real job. 28 to 135. So this lens was purchased with that T3i back in 2014 or whatever it was. What a range. Honestly, a super impressive range. If it wasn't for the fact that it's f3.5 to 5.6. I don't think I ever used this lens. Ever. I might have put it on and then was I'm gonna go back to the 50. And then 2 months later be maybe I should try it out. It's way too dark because the aperture's at 5.6. I'm gonna go back to the 50. I sent it to Adorama once with a bunch of other gear I was getting quotes on, and they were just yeah, we can't give you anything for that. Because the huge downside of this guy is how slow he is. But I mean, right now I'm shooting at f5.6. Let's switch out this lens right now. So this is the 28 to 135 at f5.6. The autofocus seems to be working. Yeah, it's following me. Next up is a lens I have a complicated relationship with. This is the Tamron 24 to 70. I upgraded my T3i to an A7S with a Comlight adapter in early 2016, I think. Spent a lot of time trying to get it to look as good as the Canon cameras I was used to using. Never did. Then I bought the C100 Mark II. But when I bought this full frame camera, I bought a full frame lens to go along with it. I went for this lens versus the Canon 24 to 70 2.8 for two big reasons. One, it was a hell of a lot cheaper. And two, it had stabilization. You know, this is the best focal length for run and gun shooting. For a lot of interviews where I want to get a medium shot, the Sigma really isn't tight enough at 35. I end up using this lens. The colors of this lens are a little bit greener. It has really ugly flares too. I'm never excited to use this lens. I can honestly say that. I'm never yeah, let's put the Tamron on there. It just kind of gets the job done. It's a workhorse with some annoyances. As I talked about in a previous video, there's a really annoying glitch that happens whenever I use it on the C70, and I'm using IS with autofocus. I was just about to publish this video, when someone commented on my last video, letting me know that the issue might be caused by the firmware in the lens. I can't believe I never thought of that, so I looked into it. Tamron sells a $60 module that allows you to connect your lens to the computer and update the firmware, as well as perform calibrations. I looked under the compatible lenses and mine is not listed. So I called up Tamron, they confirmed, yep, they stopped updating the firmware for this lens so long ago that it's technically not supported by any mirrorless cameras at all. She was very familiar with the issue and said it is because the camera is trying to give so much data to the lens and the lens just can't keep up. So although they cannot fix my problem, at least now I have some closure. All right, Vivitar 35mm 1.4. Clicked aperture. I bought my 35 prime before the Sigma took over the world, so now it's kind of obsolete. The one advantage of this lens is that it's 1.4 instead of the Sigma's 1.8. How much extra depth of field can you get with that? Let's take a look. I remember when I was filming a documentary in like 2017, and I had this lens on my A7S, and someone came over my shoulder and was peering at my LCD screen, and they're like, whoa, that looks sick. 1.4 aperture? To the average consumer, they're like, damn. All right, last two lenses. My 70-200 Canon F4. When I bought this, I opted to save like $1,000 by getting the F4 version versus the F2.8 version. I could have spent around the same amount of money and got the 2.8 version, but it would have been the version without IS. I think they even have better IS now. I think this is like version 2 and Canon has a version 3 maybe. It really just still blows my mind that at 200 millimeters, when I'm filming a concert, I can have a close-up with a monopod or maybe even handheld. I can be confident that the footage will be usable. Love this lens. It is a full frame lens, so it gets even tighter when I use it on the Canon C70, which I'm cool with. When I use this lens, I'm going for tight. Lastly, my Canon 100mm macro 2.8. This lens is probably like the best straight up quality lens I have. It's really fast, it has IS, no sacrifices with this lens. And it's probably the worst decision I ever made buying a lens. I just don't need this lens. I have no use for this lens. It costs like over $1,000, and I bought it because a while ago I was hired by an ad agency to film some videos for a whiskey brand. Unfortunately, I don't have the rights to show that footage, but I was shooting on a C200 with this lens. They needed shots of like cocktails being mixed, close-up macro shots of the bubbles. I really just loved how everything looked, and I thought I have to have that lens. I did make a couple of Instagram videos just for fun that did use this lens. I made like a beer spec. Oh yeah, the week I got this, I made a video for fun of my dad changing the strings on his guitar. I was just looking for reasons to use this because I don't really have any practical reasons to use it. This is like the first lens to go when the bag starts to get too full, or it just never makes it in the bag in the first place because it's just not practical. This was a mistake. All right, so that's what I have now. There are two that I very obviously should part ways with. As I said, I love this Sigma 18-35, and Sigma does make a 24-70 with IS that maybe could replace my Tamron with its really fun autofocus glitch. If anyone out there has used the Sigma 24-70 with the EF adapter, I'd love to hear about it. If I bought the Sigma 24-70, which is a full frame lens, and I also picked up the focal reducer, I could essentially have a 24-70 and a like 40-100. So when I'm forced to take just one lens with my body somewhere, I know that I can get decently wide, wider than I can right now, and decently telephoto, just as telephoto as I can right now, but with working autofocus and working stabilization.